Each week, nearly a dozen movies are released theatrically. 40 films a month, more than 400 a year. That's a plethora of cinema. Too much cinema. You'd have to be an addict to see all that, but don't fret. We've got you covered. This is CinemAddicts.
Hey everyone, what's up? It's a new week of CinemAddicts. This is CinemAddicts episode 289. We are covering movies that are coming out Friday, April 11th. The week of Friday, April 11th. They include Psychotherapy, The Shallow Tale of a Writer Who Decided to Write About a Serial Killer. I should really deduct points just for having to say that entire movie title. Also, The Comic Shop.
You know what? I like long movie titles.
Boy, right? What was
I don't always remember them, but like, when we talked about the
Hitler Bigfoot
Guns of
movie?
Redemption is
Okay.
like,
Right.
and it turned out it wasn't even the name of another movie, but if a movie's called Jump,
Right.
Shout,
right?
If
Yeah.
you say Psychotherapy, the shallow tale of a writer who decided to write about a serial killer. Oh, I know which Psychotherapy, a shallow tale of a writer who decided to write about a serial killer you're talking about, because there's not 15 movies with that same title.
That is fair. The other movies coming out April 11th that we're covering include The Comic Shop, The Teacher, and Sacramento. Previously, earlier this week, Bruce did not see these movies, but me and Eric, we actually reviewed Gunslingers and what was that other movie, Eric? I'm just completely... That They May Face the Rising Sun? Yes. That was in our earlier feed. So if you want to see reviews of that and interviews, please check out our earlier CinemAddicts installment this week. But Eric, before we get into our featured films this episode, let's go to our Patreon picks for this month. I don't know if you have a randomizer on my phone. I have a randomizer right now. But thank you to our Patreon patron members and our CinemAddicts Facebook group members. They helped us out with some picks for the month of April. First of all, our assigned pick for this month, Eric, I chose it from Abby Schmidt's movie recommendations. Thank you, Abby Schmidt, for being a Patreon member for quite some time. You're one of our OG members. She picked Trumbo for our assigned pick. We will cover that at the end of the month. So hopefully it will be a movie that we'll be able to watch on digital, or maybe it'll be streaming, but we will be reviewing that movie again. It's a movie that I enjoyed. Eric said nice. I'm sure you saw that movie as well and enjoyed it back in the day. You probably
I have not. I don't think I have.
Oh, you've never? Okay,
I think I've seen a bunch of pieces of it, but never the whole thing.
What do you think of Bryan Cranston? Are you okay with that? I
like him.
Okay, you like him. Hopefully you like him in this. He plays Dalton Trumbo. It's a very interesting performance by Bryan Cranston in also a very interesting movie, Trumbo. So that is Abby Schmidt. That will be our assigned pick at the end of April. We will incorporate that pick into our CinemAddicts episode. But right now, we have a bunch of recommendations for CinemAddicts from our patron members and for our Facebook group members. Here are the movies that are up for grabs for the year. By the way, I forgot to mention the year.
Real quick, should
I
grab a dice to randomize these?
You wanna dice it, or I can really?
I'll dice it, but go ahead. I'll grab a dice while you're doing that.
Okay, all right. Okay, so number 1 is The Big Short from Kenneth Cunningham. Also from Kenneth Cunningham is Carol, Hateful Eight, It Follows, and Black Sea. Those are 5 picks from Ken Cunningham. Abby Schmidt, who also assigned us Trumbo, she has another pick, and that is Spotlight. Our buddy William Lindis. We love William Lindis. He has 4 picks. So number 7 is Spring, then Tangerine, The Duke of Burgundy, and Anomalisa. I really love Anomalisa. Also, he picked Ex Machina. Our buddy David Wangberg over at the CinemAddicts Facebook group, he has Brooklyn, End of the Tour, Best of Enemies, Love and Mercy. Oh, I attended that press conference. And also, last but not least, is our buddy Nathan Day. His pick, which lands at number 16 of our movie recommendations, is Krampus. So we have 16 picks. Eric Holmes, you're going to roll some tumbling dice, 1 through 16. We need to have 2 picks from 1 through 16. Oh, okay.
I got a D20, so there's 4 that's not going to count, so I'll have to re-roll, but it's only 4, so I think I'll be fine.
Okay.
So I'll do it here where the mic's sitting so you can hear the dice rolling. 16.
Okay, 16 is Krampus. Thank you, Nathan. Nathan Day.
And the next one is 7, which is Spring.
Spring from William Lindis. Our dear friend William Lindis, who we know how awesome William Lindis is because he actually spent some quality time with Eric Holmes, which I never want to do. other than do Cinem-Atticts. William Lindis, we just went. He was at work. I think he on a work thing, and he spent the day with Eric Holmes. You are a saint, William Lindis. So thank you for
Thank
that.
you
Wait,
much.
oh,
Willem Lindis and Peter Beta did. I went to grab
the,
went to grab
the
the dice out of the Green Knight,
oh, the Green Knight. Okay,
the
okay.
Green Knight game. But we did a video a long time ago. I still got two. The one we put up, we still got two more that I never did anything with.
Oh
Maybe I'll have
wow.
to put those up again.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. Did you have a good
But
time with?
I think you can find that on the Movie Bears thing because I believe
Oh,
we gave it to them and they put it up on their thing.
that's very good. That's William Linus over at the Movie Bears podcast, and it's Nathan Day with his pick of Krampus, and again, William Linus picked Spring. Have you ever seen Spring?
Yeah, that's the
Lou Taylor Pucci, and I don't think you can give the plot summary yet because I don't know what to spoil, but it's a very interesting.
no, but they did other movies too.
Okay. Oh, right, right.
I
Yeah, those
believe we
guys.
covered.
Yes, Aaron, was it Moorhead and something like that? Aaron
I
Moorhead
gotta
or
look it up.
Taylor or something like that?
Justin Benson, Aaron
Benson
Moorhead.
Moorhead. Yes. Yeah, they've done
I'm
some.
trying to see what the other movies were.
Didn't they make a
Oh,
move?
The Endless
Right.
and
Didn't they make a move to Marvel recently? Marvel or the Marvel Universe
looks
or
like they
the
did
Star
a
Wars?
couple episodes of
Star...
Loki.
Okay,
Oh,
cool.
Synchronic. That was
Oh,
the other one I was
Synchronic.
thinking
Yeah,
of.
that's a very interesting movie as well. I have never seen Krampus, so I'm excited. So Krampus in spring.
Krampus is good. That's a
Okay.
fun movie.
So yes, Krampus in spring will be our Patreon movies for the month of April, as well as the assigned pick for Trumbo. So that is it. Thank you, Patreon members. Thank you, CinemAddicts Facebook group members, for helping us out for our movie recommendations for a $5 catch-all for Patreon. You'll get to actually listen to me, Bruce, and Eric talk about those two movies, Krampus and Spring. And this month, it's my turn to do all the heavy research. I will be doing heavy research for both those movies. All right, now let us get into movies for this week. Eric Holmes, I'm not going to mention it again. I'm just going to say Psychotherapy. All right. Psychotherapy centers on centers on a struggling writer named John Magaro. He is in the midst of a possible divorce because his wife, Susie, played by Britt Lauer from Severance. I've never seen Severance, but I think that's how you pronounce her last name. But yeah, Eric and I, we don't watch TV series. We should a little bit more. We
I
should be more
mean,
dedicated. Do we have time?
if we didn't have to watch 8 movies a week, maybe
Okay.
I'd have time for that. But
I mean, I echo it. I echo that is not a complaint from Eric. That is actually a statement of fact.
this is not Televatics, it's CinemAddicts.
Right, exactly. That said, okay, I think maybe Bruce Berkey has seen Severance, but Britt Lauer plays a wife. She wants to divorce her struggling writer husband, Keen, played by John Magaro. The catch is Keen may have a stroke of luck or maybe very bad luck because at a local diner, this is a New York set film, by the way, he runs into a retired serial killer named Kolmick, played by Steve Buscemi. Kolmick is supposedly a fan of Keen's novel, one of Keen's novels, and he offers Keen a very interesting proposition. He will teach him on the ways of being a serial killer as long as Keen uses that subject matter as the inspiration for his new book. The catch is, Keen, for the last 4 years, has been working on another novel that he just can't get his head around. It's about the battle between Homo sapiens and the Neanderthals and
It's
Neanderthals.
the Homo sapien
Neanderthals.
falls in love with the last Neanderthal.
Neanderthal, yeah, and
Yeah.
40,000 BC. Okay, so that's a cockamamie plot he's been working at for the last 4 years.
And I don't even think that works. Because when he said that, I'm like, I
Yeah.
mean, evolution doesn't work like that, really.
Right. And the reason why we're actually mentioning what that plot novel is because it plays a role in psychotherapy as well. Ultimately, this is a very interesting mix between comedy. I don't even know if it's a thriller. I think it's mainly comedy, even though there
I
is
think comedic thriller for sure.
Oh, very good.
I mean, it's not like ha ha ha. Like I'm not doubled over laughing, but it definitely has a light tone to it. Except for when it's supposed to not be light, then it gets serious business.
Okay, I will say this before we get to your review, Eric. Really love the performances by Buscemi, Magaro, and especially Lauer. Lauer as the wife is a very layered person, Susie, because there is something, even though Susie is a very successful career woman and she's very focused, her behavior is extremely eccentric. The writer, Keen, he might annoy people, but he's neurotic. I could relate to him. I was cool with that. And Buscemi is great as Colmick. I really love the characters in this movie. My and I would recommend this movie. My only complaint is it builds a really good world. Eric mentioned the comedic thriller elements. It hits on really good comedic moments. I audibly laughed at a couple of moments. Man, that ending was a little bit of it was a disappointment for me. And I'll get to my rating after Eric's review, but I was definitely disappointed. Eric, we're going to talk about that in a second, but years ago, there's this filmmaker, his name's Lasse Hallström, and he did what movies did he do? I think his most popular film is What's Eating Gilbert Grape. What else? This Boy's Life or something? Lasse Hallström.
What was that one with Kevin Spacey and Julianne Moore, I think?
Yeah, it's very good. Thank you, Eric.
Shipping News.
The Shipping News. Thank you, Eric.
Yeah.
So this is Lasse Hallström. So you know Lasse Hallström.
Yeah.
Years ago, I was at a radio roundtable and I interviewed him. Was it for The Cider House Rules or it was one of those other movies? And someone asked him, what attracts you to a project? Because if you notice, we mentioned movies that seem to be very different from one another. And he said the first thing that he looks for, and I don't know, this was 30 years ago. I don't know if he kept to that mantra, but the first thing he looks for is he wants to make sure when he's reading a script, he wants to make sure the ending is very good. Okay. And I don't know if you push back on that as just a watcher, like if you were a director, if you're going to direct a project, must the story have a really good to great ending? That's what initially attracts him to directing a project. But for me as a movie watcher, that if you don't stick the landing, okay, I've said that, it's a big thing for me. And I'll get to my rating later. But Eric, your review of Psychotherapy.
Kind of thrown off on the what's a good ending.
Well, I will tell you in a few moments.
It's like Fight Club's got a good ending, but you don't want that kind of ending for something like this because it wouldn't make sense.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, we might be able to a couple minutes after for spoilers.
The ending for Lake George wouldn't be as satisfying as for something like The Sixth Sense. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
Maybe that's what they mean. Maybe the ending's satisfying for what was built before. But either way, and then sometimes you watch movies that are good.
Don't argue with me, Eric. I'm getting really sensitive, even though I said this is the best part of our show. I'm kidding. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
But sometimes you're watching movies and, hey, I'll give you $1,000 if you can tell me how it ended. Don't know, but I love the movie anyway.
That is
5-star movie. So,
that is all fair. That is all fair, Eric.
I mean, I'll bring up Boogie Nights again. How's Boogie Nights in? But I watched it a bunch of times. I love that movie. So
I think I remember how it ends. Isn't he in front of a mirror? Anyways,
yeah,
look.
yeah. But anyway, Psychotherapy, the shallow tale of a writer who decided to write about a serial killer.
Oh, how dare you? How dare you with that chat?
I think I might agree with you on the ending on this, but this is
okay.
Yeah, after all that preamble, Greg, you're wrong for this reason, but I agree with you.
I love it.
All that said, this was an incredibly fun movie to watch.
Yeah.
And yeah, Britt Lauer, she was great. Like she was just cold. And actually there's where her character ends up, I thought made complete sense.
Oh yeah. Okay. All right. Yes.
Especially how she's been acting up until that point.
Yes.
She reveals something about herself. I'm like, yeah, I can see that.
Were you annoyed by Keen, played by John, the writer, the neurotic? Did he annoy you?
I did not buy him as a writer because he's not curious enough. They say that he is, especially with that whole potato scene. They say that he's curious, but it's
a great scene. Potato scene's great.
He's not what
I know what you're trying to say. He's what he
hold on.
He's a pretender a little bit. No, nothing. Can you hear it?
You can't hear that popping noise?
No, only you can hear it. Yeah,
okay.
No worries.
All right. Then we'll cut that out.
No. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, but I think I think what you're saying is he's a little bit more of a pretender than an actual.
No, a writer should be able to read people. He does not read people at all. He's got his self-awareness. I mean, maybe he can be a writer and have poor self-awareness, but he can't read a room.
Is he a narcissist or is he just clueless?
Probably clueless.
Okay.
Maybe a bit of narcissism in there. But either way, I'm not buying him as a writer. Although I guess he's kind of, supposedly not a. And I also think with that story that he's been writing for 4 years, It's pretty ridiculous. So maybe that's the point. He's not a great writer to begin with, but the thing that he wrote just happened to take off.
Right.
So maybe I'm talking myself out of my own only critique. Yeah, I'm not buying him as a writer, but then now that I look back on it, they kind of set him up that he's technically a writer, just not a very good one.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Maybe once he was curious. Okay, but we don't want to give it too much away, but maybe when he was younger. Let's just say when he was younger, he might have been curious, and maybe once he became a little bit more acclaimed, maybe he got set in his ways. I don't know. I also wanted to mention I like the way they portrayed New York for an indie film. It looked pretty. The beginning of
It was like another character in the movie.
all right. No, the beginning of the movie felt like a Hitchcock film. The way it was shot, the colors. There's a situation that goes on with a green light and a red light between Magaro and Lauer. They're at a stop sign,
Oh,
at a
that
red
that
light.
that pays off later too.
That pays off later too, and it looks pretty. There are, I don't know if you notice this, Eric, there are moments in the movie that there's not too much music until there is. So
Yeah.
there's some really great. I'm actually going to talk myself on a higher rating, just talking back about psychotherapy. So, yeah, what is your final thoughts and rating on psychotherapy, the shallow tale of a writer who does? And by the way, did you
Well,
think the ending?
I haven't even talked about Steve Buscemi in this. Is
Oh, go ahead. No,
Click.
no, no, my bad. Yeah, go
Love
ahead.
his character in this because like he's got kind of like the more the broad what you would think of a serial killer. Like, oh, of course he's a serial killer, but like the more you get to know him, you get to he's got more like kind of quirks and intricacies of his character that kind of developed throughout. I think the character work in this is great. Like even the one that I didn't like, Keen, the more I'm thinking about it and talking about it, the more I think maybe that character is a lot more layered than I gave it credit for immediately.
Maybe he's supposed to, even though he's the main character, he ends up sort of serving as a foil to his wife. And
I think he's more of a loser than I think the movie realizes he's more of a loser than I thought that the movie did,
mm,
if
that's
that
fair.
makes sense.
Yeah, that does
I
make
gotta stop
sense.
saying that if that makes sense.
That definitely
But
makes.
either way, totally makes sense. I said it. Of course it does. But yes, psychotherapy, the shallow tale of a writer who decided to write about a serial killer. I dig this one quite a bit. I'll probably go 4.5 on this.
4.5 stars from Eric
Yeah.
Holmes for Psychotherapy, the shallow tale of a writer who decided to write about a serial killer. And that movie is directed and written by Tolga Karacek. I am mispronouncing Tolga's name. I apologize for that. I was going to give this movie 3.5 stars because of my complaint over the ending. I will say this. I did not clarify. I complained about the ending because I wanted something else to happen. But the ending in and of itself is not a bad ending. It's not a bad ending. The characterizations are so well done. I don't see too many comedic thrillers. The way they handled it was pretty well done. And there are some really great moments in this movie. 4 stars for me for Psychotherapy, the shallow tale of a writer who decided to write about a serial killer. Look how
We
nice.
may, we
Look
may
how
have to do a quick spoiler because I
we'll do a
am
quick
kind
one.
of curious. Kind of curious of
Uh,
what your
it is a complaint.
hang-ups about the ending is.
It is a complaint, but again, I gave it 4 stars. You gave it 4.5 stars, and Bruce Perky. We'll see what Bruce Perky. I will say this: when you listen to Bruce Perky's review, he will say it was. He told me and Eric, spoiler alert, it's an entertaining movie that probably shouts at least a 3.5 star out of 5. We'll see if he bumps it up to 4 stars. Okay, Eric Holmes. There is a movie called Next Up. Or I think this is our final movie of the week because you know why? Thank goodness. Thank goodness for Bruce Perky. He has 3 movies rounding up the rear. Bruce Perky has Sacramento. He has The Teacher. Oh, also, we forgot to mention, we're going to talk about at the end of the episode, The Luckiest Man in America. We're going to talk about that in a second. But The Comic Shop. I told Eric I really enjoyed this movie, and hopefully he enjoyed it as well. It centers on this comic book store owner named Mike. He's played by Jesse Metcalf. You might know him from Desperate Housewives. He's been in a whole bunch of movies throughout his illustrious career. The comic book store he owns is not doing really well. He's losing money. He day drinks a lot. He's irresponsible. Then there's a new kid in town. His name's Brandon, played by Micah Giovanni. And Brandon ends up becoming sort of he sees Mike as possibly I don't know, a tutor or not a father figure, but a big brother figure. Brandon starts hanging around the comic shop a little bit more, and then you get to see their friendship blossom and develop. Hopefully, Brandon helps maybe Mike become more responsible. Maybe Mike sees a little bit of the passion he once lost because Mike once, a long time ago wanted to be a comic book artist, illustrator, and whatnot. And he decided to just take those dreams away and go for second best, which is he loves comic books. Why not open up his own comic shop? Okay, this movie's set in Las Vegas. It's from writer director Jonathan L. Bowen. Bowen. From Jonathan L. Bowen. My bad on the pronunciation. I actually asked him in our interview how to pronounce his name. It's Bowen. It's my bad. Also, we have to mention Tristan Mays, best known for her work in the TV series, not the original, but the more recent version of MacGyver. Tristan Mays plays Mike's loyal employee, Alex. And yeah, that is the. Well, I think is there a main antagonist in this movie? Well, there's a big comic shop, franchise shop that opens near Mike's store, and that provides a lot of sort of competition. But really, it's not really competition anyway because the comic shop is really, really struggling. The movie also features cameos from Eric Roberts and Scott Thompson. Scott Thompson is better known as Carrot Top. It's on digital Friday, April 11th. I thought this was a sweet, coming of age, well done story. It's my type of movie because for several years in my life or periods of my life, I've been a comic book fan, comic book aficionado, and I used to go to comic stores all the time. So it's right up my alley. And I really enjoyed this film. Eric Holmes, I hope I didn't waste your time by saying how much I enjoyed the movie. Tell me what you thought of The Comic Shop.
Well, I do need to add one thing. It was co-written by Scott Reed, who was also a producer on The Comic Shop, and he also produced a movie called Gunslingers.
Very good, Eric Holmes. Very good. Excellent research on that. Yes, sir. Excellent.
Yeah, The Comic Shop, it's pretty sweet movie, pretty cute movie. I would say it goes a little too broad where like with psychotherapy, like the characters of Keen and Susie and Colmick are like really great, well realized. The comic shop, not so much. The characters are pretty broad, almost cliched characters, but it kind of sets that tone early on, so I didn't really mind it too much. I guess the part that was really I was kind of hoping more for was the character of Alex by Tristan Mays. I really wanted her to have more of a character. She was kind of girlfriend / plot device in this.
Yeah.
And I wish that she could have had more of a character, and there was opportunity for that to happen.
Yeah, because she's an interesting character in the movie.
Not really. That's what I'm saying. She had the potential to be
potential.
But she wasn't quite written that way. She was a plot device and then girlfriend, whatever. But I mean, this is Mike's story.
That's true.
I didn't get
and Brandon's story.
Also, this also has some of the issues that 4:30 movie had. I think with a little more time, giving this movie a little more room to breathe, they could have leaned in on his alcoholism a bit more. They could have leaned in on his, self, what do they call it?
Self-hate? Well, self-loathing?
No, not sacrifice, but self-destruction, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
Or, self-sabotage. There you go.
Yes.
Because I mean, he does have things like working against him, but I think what the movie wants to say is that he's doing the things, but he's sabotaging himself. But it doesn't really come off that way. And I think if the movie was a bit longer and they used a little more scenes to breathe, they probably could have sold that a bit better. As it is, as kind of a broad, fun, cute movie, this works. I'm just saying, like, right now, this is like a 3-star movie with a little more care and time to cook. This could have pretty easily been like a 4.5, 5-star movie. That said, I still enjoyed myself, and I would still watch it again.
So yeah, for me, I enjoyed it. I thought it was cooked pretty well. I'm giving it 4 stars. Maybe it's just because of my comic book love. I agree with you, Eric. I'm not going to push back on the broad characters. Like you said, it's part of that whole sandwich, and I took a big bite of the sandwich and I just had a good time with it.
Much like Mike's character, this movie has a lot of unrealized potential.
Very good. Maybe I was projecting myself onto Mike a little bit too much, but I thought Jesse Metcalf was really great as Mike. I love Mike's friendship with Brandon.
The antagonist on this, the owner of
Yeah.
the other comic book shop,
Trevor Einhorn. That's
that's
his.
some of the stuff he does, like, really? Who does that?
Right.
But I mean, that's kind of the movie we're in, so you just let it go.
Oh,
Especially like you want to talk about endings that I did not buy. This is one of them.
oh, really? I like the ending to this. I'm glad.
Not not so much the ending, but like one of the
Oh,
last things that
some.
happened.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
I'm not buying that for a second. Like as soon
Okay.
as that happened, I'm like, nope, nope. And then the ending just kind of wrapped up too quick. And so when you said you had an issue with the ending for psychotherapy, I was thinking this. I was like, but either way, this is a fun movie. This is kind of like a Clerks in a comic shop.
Yeah.
I don't think it's as good as Clerks, but it's in that kind of wheelhouse.
Yeah.
So if that's an itch you need scratch, this will do that.
100%. If it's an itch, whether it's 4, 3, whatever itch you need to scratch, give the comic shop, and it's an indie film. Give it a shot. If comic books are your thing, this should be right up your alley as well. On digital, April 11th.
Oh,
Yes, yes, sir.
and Eric Roberts. He's got not in it much. Actually, you mentioned Carrot Top. Carrot Top's in it for like very briefly, but
Yes,
I like his character is actually pretty good because like he's coming in buying comics, but they kind of play it off like it's a drug deal. Like
yes.
he's really
Right.
fiending for his hit. He's like, "Ooh, yeah, yeah, this is good stuff. Thanks, man. I'll be back for more later."
So that is the comic shop. Check it out on digital, April 11th. Finally, for a rewind, this movie's already out. It came out last week. It's a film called The Luckiest Man in America. It's based on a true story. The movie is set in May 1984 when this ice cream truck driver from Ohio, his name is Michael Larson, played by Paul Walter Hauser. Of course, a lot of you know who Paul Walter Hauser is. He's the lead in Richard Jewell. He's also in Cobra Kai. He's been in a whole bunch of different movies. Eric Holmes, I don't know if you can mention some Paul Walter Hauser movies, but those are the
Yes,
big ones.
the Instigators. He was in the
Right?
Instigators.
He was great in Instigators. Yeah. So,
He was
yeah.
in one of the best sketches in I Think You Should Leave.
Okay.
There's one where it's like a guy's night out and they're at someone's house drinking, playing poker, and he was like do something. He just kind of offhandedly says like, oh, blah blah blah. Your wife was like, yeah, she's a real battle axe, and turns around and like his face just drops, and then he goes through like the whole him and his wife's whole life together, and that just kind of flashes before his eyes, and he turns around and it's like, guys, I'm sorry. I should not have said that about my wife. Like it was just some offhanded thing. I think it's, but either way, yeah.
That's pretty
Paul
cool.
Walter Hauser, he's great.
He's great. And he's great in this as Michael Larson, that again,
Yes,
aforementioned ice cream truck driver who is a fan of Pressure Luck. And he finds a way. If you don't know about Pressure Luck, it was this game show, and then I think it was revived recently.
big bucks, big
Big,
butts,
big
big
bucks, big
butts,
bucks.
no whammies.
No whammies. Make sure you hit that red button. You have red button in front of you. Just keep on. You can keep on going. Maybe have some extra turns. Just make sure you don't hit the whammy. Just get those big bucks, and you got to figure out whether to. If you get an extra spin, do you keep the spin, or if you keep the spin and you press a button and it goes into a whammy, you're gonna lose all your money. So it's one of these things. Pressure Luck. It's a real very fun game if you were raised on it like me, and I'm assuming Eric. It's uh, it's a game you remember fondly, and since that's the basis of The Luckiest Man in America, I'm sure Eric might have gravitated towards this movie as well. It's directed and co-written by Samir Oliveros, with Maggie Briggs as the other co-writer. Walton Goggins plays late game show host Peter Tomarkin, and he's good in the movie as well. David Strathern is the TV producer of Press Your Luck. What happens is when Michael Larson starts winning a whole bunch of money, and I guess for the sake of, I mentioned in my other review, Eric, what happened as far as Michael Larson goes, how much he won and whatnot. I'm going to respect you. Do you want me to mention how much he won, or you
It
said
was like 100,
Okay, there you go.
like
Over 100.
10,
100, yeah, that's right.
100,000.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
won around 110,000. Michael Larson. It's not a spoiler because that's the whole premise of this movie. It's based on the life of Michael Larson about winning that $110,000 in Press Your Luck. But here's the crux. You're thinking, why should I watch this movie? Most of the film deals with the taping of that episode. So you get a very, how do I say it? A very narrow-minded, and I mean that in the best way.
They're basically following Michael throughout the show.
Throughout the show.
And from my point of view, I
That
knew of
worked.
this story Like I've seen a documentary about this, so I already knew it was coming. I don't know about you, but I think when the documentary came out, I think a lot of people saw it. So I'm
Mm,
guessing a lot of people going into this are at least familiar enough with the story that they know that, oh, this is the guy from Press Your Luck that cheated the system and won a bunch of money. And then we're just gonna watch the dramatization of that. The
yeah,
cool thing that they did here was we just follow Mike in. Not to compare someone that gamed the system on a game show to a mass shooter, but NetRAM is kind of a good sort of comparison of when you're following this person, you already know going in what they did. You're just waiting to see how it plays out. And
right.
that's kind of what they do here. If you're going in, you kind of already know how the story goes out, but you're just following them to see at what point the the producers and everyone starts figuring it out, and then what they do in real time to combat that.
Right. And like Eric said, it's a dramatization. It's not it's based on a true story, but there are fictional elements in The Luckiest Man in America. I also have to mention Haley Bennett. She has a small role as Larson's ex-wife, and Larson is very connected to his daughter. He wants to win Pressure Luck and make some big bucks and money for to help support his ex-wife and especially his lovely daughter. That's his supposedly his main focus. It's a very layered performance by Paul and charismatic performance by Paul Walter Hauser. We don't expect anything less from a talented actor like Paul Walter Hauser. Going back to what I said about Lasse Hallström and endings, I had a problem with the ending of The Luckiest Man in America. A little bit more of a problem with that ending than the problem I had over with our previous movie, Psychotherapy. But we'll get to what Eric. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna give my rating in a few moments. Eric, your review of The Luckiest Man in America, did it work for you?
So it starts off with a thing that this is based on true events, but names and certain events are changed. Now, I was familiar with the story, but like there's a part where Michael he leaves the studio and he goes into another studio because Johnny Knoxville's in this.
Right. Yes.
And there's that whole scene with Johnny Knoxville. I'm like, that they just make that up? Because it feels like they just made that up.
Yeah. I don't
Um,
know if they made that up, but
because because he goes into that other
right.
thing, and then Johnny Knoxville's interviewing him, and then he's looking right at the screen, and it's almost like a character kind of giving the audience their internal thoughts on things. And there's a couple things like that where it gets kind of dreamlike that could not have happened in real life. And
Mm,
but so like even though I'm familiar with the story, there's certain things in this where I'm like, that seems like an artistic flourish, but I'm not 100% sure, which was kind of interesting to kind of go about. And
yeah.
then even the bit where the one guy's like, "Oh, he's a star. Like, let's just lean into this." I wonder if that was more something that they thought of later as opposed to thinking of that on the spot like they did. So this is not a documentary, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And the movie doesn't pretend to be because it says that right off the top, and it's got some stuff that are obvious fiction. But I do kind of agree with you. The ending kind of just fizzled out. Uh,
Yeah.
but this is also another example of everything leading up to that. I enjoyed so much.
The
Even
ending,
even knowing how it turns out,
right.
it just kind of added to the way they decided to approach this story and get into it. I think added that little extra attention because the movie's starting, you know what's going to happen. You know who this person is. You know what they're about to do. You know what they prepared for before we even saw them, frame one of them on the camera. So it adds that little bit of tension where we see the bomb underneath the seat, but no one else does. That's kind of where I think this movie shines the most.
And then you said shines, and this movie does shine. It's the ending to me was, I think you said it perfectly. It fizzled out, but everything else before was fine. All that said, The Luckiest Man in America, worth a watch. Solid production design, good performances. Really love being in the world of 84. It actually, even with its indie budget, put me in that world pretty well. I'm giving The Luckiest Man in America four, not 4 stars. I was gonna say 4.5, 3.5 stars. 3.5 stars for The Luckiest Man in America. I will be speaking with Eric on the ending of The Luckiest Man in America, as well as the ending of Psychotherapy. We'll be putting up that up for our Patreon members, and then several days later we'll release it on our CinemAddicts YouTube channel. So look for that very very soon. Eric, your rating and final thoughts.
You know, in spite of the ending fizzling out, I'm still going to give it 4.5 because this is one I would watch again and again and again. Nothing else for Walt Goggins, Paul Walter Hauser, David Strathairn. Like just watching them all, it's got kind of like a newsroom kind of vibe to it. You know, it's not quite as snappy as Aaron Sorkin, but it's got that kind of vibe to it.
Oh, but right. We also have to, yeah, exactly. We also have to mention the sorry, Eric, the ensemble, Patty Harrison and Brian Garrity. They're very good character actors. They are the fellow contestants who are up against Michael Larson. So they don't have big roles in the movie, but those are very good actors. There's an actor, James Wolk, WOLK.
Yeah.
You've seen him before, but he has a very incidental role in the game show. He's the guy who's, I think he's, what is he, either the cameraman or the one who's setting up the time, the coordinator. Also, we forgot, Eric, Maisie Williams from Game of Thrones. She's the production assistant or production coordinator who's trying to keep the wheels in motion. So she was, yeah, there's some really big, really good actors in this movie. And it's a really well done ensemble. Shamir Anderson is the TV producer's second in command as well.
Is that the one that goes in like takes the phone off the thing and starts like doing all the detect?
Right. He's the guy who's the smart one.
There you go. The one that kind of the
one who's legitimately employable, right?
I wonder if he's like one that like played one of the composite characters,
possibly,
because like I could see him. First of all, if he's an actual person, then great job. But
yeah, and hire him. Hire that guy.
His character feels like someone that they composited from like 7, 8, 9, 10 different characters, and just, you know what? Let's just make this one character, and he's a superhero played by Shamir Anderson.
Shamir Anderson plays the voice of reason in The Luckiest Man in America. That is 3.5 stars from me and 4.5 stars from Eric Holmes. We are done with Cinematics. We are going to get to our Patreon spoilers in a few moments, and then, of course, most importantly, Bruce Perky will be leading the way with a bunch of reviews of, let me look at the reviews again, The Teacher, and he has Sacramento, and he also has a review of Psychotherapy. So stay tuned for that. Eric Holmes, final thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, we got some, I mean, look, we don't have like any 6.9 star bangers, but like Comic Shop, flawed, still totally watchable. Psychotherapy, you know, even Luckiest Man in America. Like all these movies are flawed, but all three are incredibly watchable. And I'd probably watch either one of them again anytime.
I forgot to mention this, Eric. And, you know, we're doing Patreon. We're doing all these movies. A lot of times I think, and I'm sure Bruce will echo in this sentiment, we cover as many movies as we can on a given week. Most of these, 9 out of 10, are indie-driven projects. It's a privilege to bring all of these new movies to you guys. And the only problem with this is by the next week, like right now we're taping on a Tuesday because of jury duty. We're taping early, but usually me and Eric, we tape on Wednesday. So you got to admit, okay. So when we're done reviewing the movies on Wednesday, we've just had a whole bunch of movies we watched, like 4 to 5 movies the previous week, right? So we're done on Wednesday on the taping, and then we're off to a new 4 to 6 movies to review. I'm not complaining. Our job in Cinematics is to review movies that come out on a given week, a lot of them indie. My only complaint or bittersweet factor is we don't get to really enjoy them. And I'll be honest with you, by the next week, we're on to the next one. I don't know if you feel that way, Eric, because when you look at our Google Docs and you see, oh my God, I really loved this movie 3 weeks ago. Why am I forgetting about it? Oh, well, that's because I saw 20 movies within the last 2 weeks.
See, this is why movie titles like Psychotherapy, The Shallow Tale of a Writer Who Decided to Write About a Serial Killer. See, when I look up
very good.
When I look up The Comic Shop 6 months from now, I'm gonna have to look it up. And okay, now I know what you're talking about. When I see Psychotherapy, The Shallow Tale of a Writer Who Decided to Write About a Serial Killer, I'm gonna know exactly what that movie is.
See, this is why Eric Holmes needed to be a lawyer or a barrister or one of the judge, jury, whatever, because he needs to be the one on jury duty. I was exposing a vulnerable part of Cinematics, and he threw it back with some very salient points about that movie title from the beginning. Very good, Eric Holmes, to wrap it. So yeah, very, very good. You are correct on that, Psychotherapy, with that long title. All right, guys.
Oh, I know.
Oh. Eric knows, but here's the bottom line. Again, I still haven't recorded Claire yet for the sort of interstitial wrap, and I apologize for that. Eric knows, but does Bruce Porky know? Find out in a few moments. Here is the Cinematic.
Welcome to the Cinematic, the attic, the attic, the attic of cinema, the place where I actually am talking to you from outside of the attic. You see how this works is I'm kept in the attic all week watching movies with a few scraps of food thrown through the hatch, and then I get to come down to the recording area while Eric, kind of allows it, and then back to the attic. Anyway, I am out to talk about a few movies this week. I've got a movie called The Teacher. I've got a movie called Sacramento for you middle class film class people. They live in the Sacramento area. I have lived in the Sacramento area myself. This is a movie called Sacramento. And I have a movie called, okay, I'll give you the full title when I review it in a second here. I'm just going to call it Psychotherapy. I also did see with my kids Minecraft, a Minecraft movie, and it is exactly as bad or as good as you think it's going to be. If you think it's going to be a terrible, corporate, noisy, monstrous, colorful explosion or puking of CGI garbage onto the screen, then that's exactly what you're going to get. But it is also what you want if you're a kid that wants a Minecraft movie. I think you'll enjoy it too. So once again, if you think you're going to hate it, you will. If you think you're going to love it, you might. Let's just say I enjoyed it more than I expected to enjoy it. And I had a good time with my kids. So that's all that matters sometimes when you're going to the movies. Having a good time with your family or friends or whoever you're going with. Okay, let's get to the movies. This week, I have got first, I'm going to say the whole title now. Psychotherapy, the shallow tale of a writer who decided to write about a serial killer. Now, that gives you a lot in the title. You kind of get an idea there. It's directed by Tolga Karachilik. I don't know how close I am to the name there, but I did my best. And it has three actors that you might recognize. I know I did. First of all, you've got as Susie, Britt Lower. She has become quite well known from her role as Helly R in Severance. Well, that's one of her two roles in Severance. I guess it's always her. Britt Lower. And then you have Kolmick, played by the great Steve Buscemi. And then you have Keane, Keane, played by John Magaro. And I've seen in recently a few things, but what I saw him in most recently was September the 5th, I think was what it was called, where it was about the Munich shootings and a news team. He kind of led the live news broadcast. He also was in First Cow, and he's been a bunch of things. He's one of those guys that is starting to become hey, I've seen that guy in things before. What's his name? He's one of those guys, which of course was Steve Buscemi for the longest time, but now he's pretty much a name actor at this point. Basic concept is you have this couple, Susie and Keane, and when you see them at the beginning of this movie, they seem to have been a couple. Well, they're married. They seem to have been a couple for a while, and they seem to have a pretty chilly relationship. They're at this dinner party, a very snooty, very hipstery, very almost like you're the art crowd dinner party, and you've got Keane, and he's a writer, and he's written one book, and it's got a little bit of critical acclaim in certain circles, but as far as widespread popularity or notoriety, he never got it. He is a writing star in his own mind, and he is willing to definitely pontificate about how awesome he is and what he's doing at the party, to the point that you can feel the eyes rolling, and I think maybe his wife's eyes are rolling the most, and you kind of get that sense that she's getting fed up with this dude, and he's pretty oblivious to that fact. He just likes to hear himself talk. And they're together, or soon after they are together, and there's this very odd scene where she's cutting onions. And recently I was thinking about the cutting onions or cutting of any kind of vegetable always leads to someone cutting their hand, which this time it doesn't, amazingly. She's cutting onions to the point that she is like got, mascara smeared all down her face, comically so. She's acting almost robotically doing it. You're like, is she going to try to kill him? But no, they end up having I don't know if you should call it an argument per se, but basically she says, I'm leaving you. This marriage is done. I'm done with you. You're just not what I wanted, you know. And in his sadness, he kind of wanders off to a diner. Kind of looks like an all-night diner, but you're not sure. He wanders off to a diner, and a random stranger walks up to him as Steve Buscemi's character, Colmick. And Colmick loves to introduce himself as Colmick. And he introduces himself. He basically is like Keen's fan. And Keen, of course, you know, even in the midst of his, you know, despair over his ending marriage, Keen has got enough ego. He has to listen to this guy who says he's a huge fan. And Colmick says, but, you know, you should be writing about me. I'm a serial killer. So here's a chance you can write about me. I'm a retired serial killer, but you can follow me around and I'll give you advice about all the ways that serial killers do their thing. So if you see the title and you hear that kind of setup, you might think, oh, this movie's going to be kind of a real dark, like a real dark, I guess, comedy or satire. And to some degrees it is, but a dark satire of, I don't know, killing and humanity. Maybe it's kind of like Man Bites Dog, if you know what that is, which is a very dark pseudo documentary about about a crew who follows a serial killer and becomes involved themselves. And I thought, oh, that's what this is going to be. You know, he's going to be a writer. He's going to follow around the killer, and he's going to learn what a killing is like. But he's also going to get in way over his head. He does get way over his head, but in a different way. And I kind of don't want to tell you why. And I don't know if Eric and Greg might have already told you why. But there is a way that Colmick gets involved in the relationship of Keen and Susie, or the failing relationship of Keen and Susie, which I did not see coming, and is a real kind of pleasant surprise, and adds a very kind of a fun twist to what I thought was going to be kind of a predictable story. And it ends up being a much smaller movie than I thought it was going to be. I thought it'd be a much bigger actiony movie, and instead it becomes, this is hard to explain, but it becomes a little more, I don't want to say slapstick, but it becomes a little more of a broad, almost sitcom in some ways. It looks like a serious indie satire, but it actually plays out a little more like a broad sitcom comedy in a lot of ways. So the reason I tell you that is this movie, I think, is going to fall or rise based on people's expectation. And if they go in expecting the super, I don't know, the super dry, mean, dark satire, they might be really disappointed in how kind of broadly and almost traditionally comedic the story plays out. And when I mean traditionally comedic, I mean things like, you know, the classic sitcom, you know, Three's Company kind of thing is a misunderstanding between the characters, and the entire comedy plays out because the two sides don't quite understand what's going on. And there's a big element of that in this movie where, you know, what's going on between Colmick and Keen is not understood by Susie. And that misunderstanding leads to a lot of the comedy, which you'll either find way too traditional and be like disappointed that it's not, you know, skewering society enough, or you might be pleasantly surprised, like, oh wow, this is just kind of a straight up comedy. Now, all that being said, I did enjoy this quite a bit. I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it, kind of like I'm just talking about. And it won me over. At first, I wasn't so sure. I thought this is going to be a very snarky, super hipstery, kind of all up its own. And it ended up being kind of like, no, we're just going to have a good fun time here. And I eventually kind of got that flow, and I went for it. I especially loved the character of Susie and how her story plays out. I mean, the main dude, Keen, is definitely insufferable, but he's supposed to be insufferable. So I was okay with that. And he's almost the kind of character you would get. He's not a Woody Allen level neurotic, but he's the kind of character that might be played by a Woody Allen in a, you know, 70s version of this movie. Boy, oh boy, was Susie fantastic. And just kind of the way she played out was really great. And then you don't have to say Steve Buscemi is going to be great. Steve Buscemi also, I expected him to be much more of a, like, as you go along, you're going to start getting scared of him. And I wasn't ever scared of him. It was more like he was exasperated. He was like, he made this deal in the beginning thinking he was going to get, this, I don't know, this thrilling hit off of, I don't know, this, hit of, you know, Susie. And then he ends up being kind of like, no, we're just going to have a good fun time here. And I eventually kind of got that flow, and I went for it. I especially loved the character of Susie and how her story plays out. I mean, the main dude, the main dude, Keen, is definitely insufferable, but he's supposed to be insufferable. So I was okay with that. And it won me over. At first, I wasn't so sure. I thought this is going to be a very getting this normie into his life. And he ended up, I think, being exasperated by what he got himself into and kind of stuck with it. So I think that interrelationship between the three is really what makes this sing. Also, it looks fantastic. I don't know what the budget for this movie is, but it looks really good. And there's a lot of night shots. And I don't, was it New York? I don't even remember. I think it was New York. It looks really, really good. Lots of night stuff. Like I said, this also feels like a movie could have been one of those it all happened in one night kind of movies. And it almost is, but it isn't quite. Because it does take place over several days, but it kind of feels like those it happened all over one night kind of movies. I like this movie quite a bit. I was kind of borderlining on this one, but I think I'm going to end up at 4.5. I liked it a lot. 4.5 for Psychotherapy, the shallow tale of a writer who decided to write about a serial killer. Check it out. And yeah, this director, Tolga Karachulik, could be someone to watch. It's kind of interesting. All right, let us go to The Teacher. The Teacher, directed by Farah Nabulsi. Hope I said that right. Farah Nabulsi. It stars the people that are the main people here are going to be, let me see if I can get this here. You've got Adam, played by Mohammed Abed Al-Rahman. You've got Bassem El Salah. He's your main guy, played by Salah Bakri. And you've got Lisa, played by Imogen Poots. And you might be like, wow, I heard a lot of names that sounded somewhat Middle Eastern to my, normie Western ears. And then I heard Imogen Poots in the middle of that. Imogen Poots, which, she's a very known actress at this point in the indie scene. What is this movie? Well, The Teacher takes place in Palestine, Palestinian settlement, the West Bank. And she is like I didn't write down exactly what she is, but she's like kind of like the idea of a Western worker that likes to go in there and try to, be an aid worker or help the Palestinians try to, keep keep going, I guess is what you could say. She's there to help, social worker kind of person. But she can only have so much effect in that conflict. The main guy, the teacher, I'm just going to call him the teacher. I'm going to call her Lisa and call him the teacher, and Adam is the kid. That's probably the easiest way to kind of set this up. And it's interesting because after just watching, what was the movie? No Other Land? Oh my gosh, I can't remember the exact name of it. It was the Oscar-winning documentary about the West Bank just this last year, which I reviewed, and it was a great movie. I already understood kind of the basic sort of dynamic there, which is represented here as well. This is a dramatic movie as opposed to a documentary. Basic dynamic, once again, is the Israelis will proclaim an area in the West Bank, as for some reason it is not really essentially owned anymore by the Palestinians living there. For example, in the movie, the No Other Land movie, I hope I'm remembering that name right. I'm sorry if I'm not. In that documentary, they would basically claim it a tank training area. And then they would go in like just randomly and destroy a house or destroy a building. And they would do it very slowly to basically kind of crush the spirit of the people who live there, because people would be trying to live and think like, oh, well, maybe my land will be spared. But no, one day the military vehicles and a bulldozer will come in and just destroy a single house and then leave. And you see that represented here. So the teacher, of course, he's teaching, young Palestinian people, young Palestinian men, it looks like mostly. One of them is Adam, and Adam's brother is there as well. Adam's brother is a little more, I don't know, he's definitely trying to fight against the Israelis as much as possible. He's much more of a outward, and he's got in trouble for it. It sounds like he spent some time in detainment for that, in jail, which doesn't take much to do if you know the situation there. Anyway, their house basically gets destroyed. It's not a huge reveal. It's kind of the opening of the movie, essentially. The teacher's nearby as well, and they, watch the house get destroyed, and the two brothers are basically angry, of course, understandably distraught. Their family has to relocate to a nearby other family member's house, but you see them kind of still hanging out at the ruins of their house. And there's a couch out front. two brothers are sitting there, and let's just say another occurrence happens with the Israelis that causes a conflict and causes I don't know if I should reveal it or not. I'm saying it because I think it's kind of the inciting incident. It causes the death of one of the brothers. And essentially what you'll have in the rest of the movie, if you have the interrelationship between the teacher, the the Western activist, Lisa, and one of the brothers that survived, and how they are all battling with how do you survive in this world? How do you resist in that world in a way that doesn't destroy you? How do you maybe find a reason to live again when you've lost something? Because you'll find more about the past of Lisa. You'll find more about the past of the teacher. You find, of course, about the one of the kids that's the brothers that's still alive, and it's just a very, very affecting, moving, really well done, just kind of a political human drama, as you might expect. It is not the fastest movie in the world, as you might expect. This is not an action movie, and it's a pretty heavy movie, as you might expect. But there's some really great action. There are some tense moments because, like I said, any moment the Israelis might roll in. This, of course, is a very partisan movie. So if you are strongly on one side, this could be very triggering to some people, depending on which side they're on, because it does represent the people resisting the Israeli kind of incursion into, if you want to call it that, into the West Bank. Definitely, and it views that as the enemy, and it reviews the people against that as freedom fighters, whereas depending on which side you're on, you might see the other side as terrorists and the one side as freedom fighters. So it could go either way depending on kind of where you stand. I think that if you can let that political stuff go to the degree of if you're super partisan on one side or the other, I think you could still appreciate this as a human story where you have humans in a very dangerous and kind of soul crushing situation, just trying to find a way to kind of hold on to the bits of the humanity they have. And in that sense, I think it's a pretty beautiful movie. It isn't quite, this is like kind of movie that you could see like, oh, is this going to be Oscar level? It isn't quite there to me. Although there's some pretty great performances by all the three principals that I just named. I definitely could recommend this. I'm probably gonna go 4 stars on the teacher. Like I said, it's a little slow, and it's definitely a very this isn't like a fun or exciting romp. If I hadn't seen the documentary, I might have gone higher on this because I might have felt like I learned more. And I think for people who haven't delved into the documentary I was talking about, this might go even higher for them because they're going to be like, wow, I just never really knew like kind of how things are working over there. But I felt I had a pretty good handle on that based on that other experience. So that side of it didn't really kind of, I guess, unlock anything new for me. So I probably would have gained even more, like I said, if I hadn't known that. So 4 stars for the teacher, definitely worth seeking out. It's a solid movie. Okay, the last movie, like I said, not a very long week this week. I don't have a ton for you, but I have some interesting ones. The last one is Sacramento. Now, Sacramento, I don't know why I say it that way. I'm looking right here now. What is my final grade on Sacramento? Let's see. I have to decide on the fly here. Usually I write down like my tentative grade as I'm watching a movie, and then I kind of adjust it as I sit with it a little bit. This is directed by Michael Angelano. It also stars as Ricky Michael Angelano. It also stars uh, Glenn, played by Michael Cera. Michael Cera, we know him. Michael Cera. Why am I saying Cera? Michael Cera. We've known him from a million things. Scott Pilgrim, probably one of the more famous ones. He's a bunch of stuff. He's the the indie. Uh, he was the indie sad sack nerdy hipstery darling from the thousands, I guess you'd say. The 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 beta dude for all beta dudes. You also have Maya Erskine playing Tally, and you've got Kristen Stewart in a role here. Doesn't a lot in this movie, but she's there, and she plays Rosie. Kristen Stewart, Rosie, is the wife to Michael Cera, and she is about to have a baby, so they are, getting ready to have that baby. All right, so what is the basic setup of this movie? So the basic setup is that you've got Ricky. Maybe he's the guy who, played by Michael Angelika. He's like I said, the star and the writer of this. He's the kind of guy who's in a grief counseling group and gets kicked out because people are so sick of him. So you get right out of the gate, you get the idea that like this is a guy that will annoy everybody around him at some point. He always has something going on and he needs to be the center of attention, I guess. He's like the friend that always shows up at the party and everyone's like, oh man, great. Ricky's here. That kind of guy. So anyway, that's kind of what happens. You've got Michael Cera's character, Glenn. I got to remember the names, Glenn and Rosie, right? So Glenn and Rosie, like I said, they're getting prepared to have a baby very, very soon. And you notice really quickly that Ricky is, gosh, I can't remember the names correctly. Glenn. Michael Cera's Glenn. You notice really quickly that Glenn has some real anxiety issues, like to the point that he might have anxiety attacks trying to put together a crib, and he might shake it to pieces and actually break it because he maybe his anger and anxiety don't have a very healthy outpouring. He doesn't have a way of really coping in life very well, and he maybe has some emotional issues. That's kind of what you get to know about, Ricky right out of the gate. Once again, Glenn, oh my gosh, I can't get the names right. I'm just going to say their names. Michael Cera character, he, like I said, anxiety dude. Other guy, annoying dude. Annoying dude shows up outside, anxiety dude's house, skulking through his backyard, pretending to show up to like have a friendly reconnection. And annoyed anxiety dude is very annoyed by this, but he also is the kind of guy who could never really just be a bold person and say, hey, you're not supposed to be here, get out. Nope, he has to let him in, and they have to have this awkward conversation, and they have to somehow, randomly, end up on a road trip to Sacramento. They live in LA originally, they're on the way to Sacramento. That's going to be the movie, right? You're going to have two annoying people stuck in a car on their way to Sacramento. The annoying dude, Ricky, not Michael Cera, but Ricky, the annoying dude, Ricky, is going to find excuses to basically, essentially abduct his friend and force him on this road trip to Sacramento. Now, to me, that setup could work if I liked watching either of the characters. Now, I don't have to like the characters because both of these characters are not very likable in a lot of ways, I think. But I also didn't like watching them because I think it's supposed to be funny. Like it's supposed to be like oddball couple on the road. It's going to be great. Like Midnight Run, that worked, right? Because we had two characters together stuck in a car that hated each other, but yet that, created the comedy and created the drama. And in this case, boy, oh boy, was the comedy not working for me. And I was just stuck in a car with two characters I did not like at all. And they get to the destination with probably about 30 minutes to go, maybe 40 minutes to go. And then you find the real reason that Ricky wanted to drag Anxiety Boy along, and that it wasn't just to see Sacramento, but there's some other reason they're going there, that he really needs to be there. And when you find that out, I didn't care about that either. And once again, it's a comedy. Comedies don't have to be realistic. I get that. In fact, they're not realistic. I just talked about one with the, psychotherapy. That's very unrealistic. That's not going to happen in anybody's life, probably. But if you kind of are intrigued by the situation and the characters, you'll go with the unrealism of it because it's not a realistic story. It's a comedy, it's a satire, it's a thriller, whatever it is. In this one, it was like, I hated the characters so much, and I hated how they thought they were being so clever with the comedy, and it just wasn't. It was annoying. That I also thought it was an outlandish situation because of that. No, I really, really did not like this movie. I think we have this every so often This is a movie, because once again, comedies, you like them or hate them a lot of times differently than someone else, because comedies are very individual. Like what works for you doesn't work for other people. So you might love this movie. This is definitely one of those movies where you watch the first 15 to 20 minutes. If you like the vibe and you are liking the comedy and you are liking the characters, the way they're being put down for you, you'll probably enjoy this movie and actually really, really like it. So that's I guess my positive spin. If you have the availability to watch this movie on a streaming service at some point, so you're not really out, whatever, $10 or something to, commit to it at a movie theater. If you can, you can just kind of dip in and watch the first 20 minutes. If you like that first 20 minutes, go for it. You'll probably enjoy it. If you don't, like I myself, it's not going to get any better for you. You better jump out. This is a movie that bordered on making me angry at how much I did not like it, which usually means I go from a 2 down to a 1. I don't know if it's that bad. It's not really that bad. So I'm going to stay at a 2, which is a generous 2. A generous 2, because I hated my time with these characters so much. I did not like any of the characters. I hoped they would die. I hoped that Colmick would come from the other movie and kill them for me, please. It was terrible. All right. I'm not going to go into a long review of the Minecraft movie. Like I said before, you know what you're getting with that movie. If you want it, you go for it. If you don't, don't. You're not going to get anything you thought you weren't going to get. It's not going to. This is not a Lego movie where it's like, wow, that movie ended up being actually way different than I thought it would be. It was so much more clever. No, it's very dumb. But I had a good time watching it. I don't know what to say. All right. We have some cool movies for next week. One of them being The Shrouds, which is the brand new Cronenberg movie. So keep an ear out for that. Where at least one of us, if not all of us, will be watching The Shrouds by David Cronenberg. I never saw his last movie, and I heard very mixed reviews, and I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have liked it. Maybe I'll go back and check it out. I don't know. I am very hot and cold on David Cronenberg, but I always appreciate his originality and his very unique way of approaching movies. Sometimes I love it. Sometimes I hate it. Let's see what I think of The Shrouds. Anyway, have a good day, guys. It's time for me to go back up into the attic. I'm being shown the hatch, and I'm being told, get back up there. So I'm going back up. See y'all later.